All I can hope is that the Republican Party really becomes the party of no. Thou shalt not. Where did I hear that before?
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
All right, we have a lot we want to talk about today. You can get news on the thrashing that the Democrats took clearly in the U.S. Senate, in the U.S. House, in gubernatorial races all over the country, surprise defeats in Maryland and in Illinois. I mean, this was the biggest thrashing that anyone has taken since just after World War II. That's how far back the pundits and the prognosticators are having to reach to look at what a devastating defeat this was. I'm going to come at this from a little bit different angle to give you some talking points. Remember, the purpose of this program is not simply to report the news, but to filter the news through a historic Judeo-Christian lens, through the scriptures, to equip you to be the light and the salt of the earth that God has called you to be, okay? Now, there's a lot of people right now that are saying that the Republicans have a chance to show that they can work with the president. They need to not be the party of no. Well, if you remember back to 1994, which I do, I was very involved in politics at that time, that was when Newt Gingrich led the surprising upset and took the House of Representatives. And before the race, he had what he called the contract with America. He told everyone, this is what we're going to do if you elect us. And they actually got a lot of it done. It was tinkering around the edges, don't get me wrong. There wasn't any major ethical changes in the direction of the country. But they made promises, and they did everything they could to make good on those promises. They passed bills. They sent them to the Senate. When they had a pass in the House and the Senate, they were sent to President Clinton's desk, who either signed them or didn't sign them. So with them, if you remember, again, thinking back, there was the government shutdown. And the problem was that Newt Gingrich lost control of the debate. In other words, suddenly he was blamed for shutting down the government when it should have been President Clinton who was blamed. All right, so just keep that little fact of history in your mind. And then let's come back to the party of no. There are some people who have forgotten how many of the 10 Commandments are declared in the negative. You shall not have any other gods before me. You shall not make any graven images. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not covet. These are all negatives. These are all nots. They're all no's. All right? Now, I want to ask you a question. What did the Republican Party, what did their candidates run on? What national cohesive theme existed prior to the election? Think about it. What was it? Well, the only one that I can think of was Obama is an abject failure and we've got to stop him. Right? It was stop the Obama agenda. Stop him. Stop him. Stop his agenda on the Keystone Pipeline. Stop his agenda with Ebola. Stop his agenda with immigration. Stop his agenda with the fight against religious liberty. Stop his agenda with the militant homosexual marriage movement. Stop this man. In other words, say no. Say no. That's it, people. And by the way, I want to tip my hat to Rush, who has been hammering this theme, and others are picking up on it and debating it. But I'm trying to come at it from an ethical point. And that is that it is ethical. It is biblical, if you will, to say no. Just look at the commandments. Thou shalt not. And you don't compromise with murder. Thou shalt not murder unless you have to compromise so that you're not labeled as the party of no. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord your God in vain unless you've just got to go to Washington and get something done so that you don't get bad press. No. If this Congress has a lick of sense, they are going to do two things. When I come back from this break, I'll tell you what they are.
You have two choices. I mean, you can try to raise your children by design, or you will raise them by default. There are no perfect parents. We're going to get it wrong sometimes. If we have a plan, we've got a better chance of getting it right in the long run.
There is something deep within the heart of every human being that longs for parental acceptance and approval. When does a boy become a man?
Get a group of guys around and ask them that question.
I don't think there's a certain age. Some men stay boys their whole life.
I would say, 16, 18 years old?
Wow, that's a good question.
When they get bar mitzvah.
Well, I think when he has a child. So I just became at 56, 56 years old.
Without the power of the Holy Spirit changing us and giving us power over our sin, we can't hope to be the dads that our kids need us to be.
You can look like the sane person in the conversation if you are cohesive, if you don't get too shrill, if you don't pound on the table too many times. You can even say things that are a little bit over the top, a little bit strident, if you just maintain a calm and happy demeanor. Now, the truth of the matter is that's how a lot of people who are wicked evildoers have seduced nations. Look at Obama. Look at Stalin. Look at Hitler. And yes, I am lumping them together. We can talk about that in another day. But the ethical trajectory of Obama is evil, all right? Evil in the biblical sense. But I digress. If the Republicans in power have a lick of sense, they're going to do two things. And I, frankly, don't know if they have a lick of sense. I don't know how many of them do. I'm confident that some of them do. I don't know about most of them, and I'm certain that John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, they are not equal to the task. Maybe there could be some insurrection among their ranks. Two things they need to do. Number one, they need to say no to Obama's agenda. If he wants to push for something, 95 times out of 100, the answer is going to simply be no. Now, Randall, why would you say that? Because what does Obama want? He wants higher taxes. He wants us to be energy dependent upon the Saudis and terrorist nations for our oil. He doesn't want to have the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, go down the list. Obama wants to murder babies. So the Republicans have to say no. They don't have to go and sit in there and come up with a compromise. No, here's what they do. This is point number two. Pass bills. Pass bills. I think the no-brainer bill, if I was advising some of these guys, here's the no-brainer bill. You ready? Pass comprehensive Keystone Pipeline legislation. All right, now this is political. All right, ethically, the number one goal is to stop the murder of babies, and number two, to stop the militant homosexual juggernaut. All right, but if I'm going to give advice to this Congress that on a political level, start the discussion right now about defunding Planned Parenthood, okay, in the next budget. Get ready to do that battle. But a bill that they could pass quickly and then show the country that Obama is a maniac, pass a comprehensive bill that allows the Keystone Pipeline to come from Canada all the way to Texas, okay? That's what you do. Hammer out the language, get it to the president's desk. If the president signs it, the Republicans win because they showed that they could work with the president, that they were concerned about energy independence, that they want our fuel prices to go down, that they don't want us to be dependent upon the Saudis, who are the number one financiers of terrorism in the world, all right? They don't want Americans paying for terrorist acts in their Midwest gas pumps. Right? So it's a win if the president signs it. If he refuses to sign it, guess what? He's the bad guy. He's the president of no. He's the one who is not willing to get along and do things that clearly the American people want done. The overwhelming majority in this country want the Keystone Pipeline open, okay? And the president, in a press conference, I think it was yesterday or the day before, which was pathetic. I don't know if you saw any of the clips. This man needs psychiatric help, in my opinion. But I digress. Americans want energy independence. They want the price of fuel to go down. They would love the tens of thousands of jobs that would be created to just build the Keystone Pipeline. So the Republicans need to start passing bills. They need to go ahead and pass a bill that's the repeal of Obamacare. He'll veto it. But they also need to pass a bill that deals with the fact that people are not able to keep their doctor, all right? Obamacare has been such a disaster. There are many Americans, the man sitting on the other side of this camera, among them, who had his life upended in their insurance costs and what their insurance would do for them, their insurance company. Everything had to be switched because of Obamacare, okay? It's common that there are people in a very precarious position right now with their health care because of Obamacare. So the Republicans just need to send bills to him because that's what the American people elected them to do. Stop Obama and reverse course. Reverse course. And if they will do that and they get in a tussle with Obama for the next 2 years, well, they can show the American people, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and if you'll give us a Republican president who will work with us in Congress, we can change course in this country. But if they go up there going, well, we don't want a government shutdown, and we don't want Obama to work to grant amnesty to all these illegal immigrants using an executive order, so we want to play ball with them. We want to be the party of yes. No, no, no. Be the party of no. Look at him in the face and say, President Obama, thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not murder. Oh, I like the ring of that. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. All right, let's not talk about impeachment. Let's not. And the reason let's not is because the Republicans have already taken it off the table. So maybe we should talk about it just a little, but in this framework. The president in 2010 did an interview with, I think, Univision, one of the Hispanic networks, and he was saying, look, I'm not a king, okay? I'm not a king. I have to work with Congress. Because they were pushing him saying, why don't you do more to alleviate the pain and suffering of these immigrants and make a pathway to citizenship and to them having at least a legal status. So the president, in his bullying press conference yesterday, said that, basically said the Congress has till the end of the year. All right, either he said it in that press conference or he said it in another framework. But if you guys want me to work with you and to sign something, you've got till the end of the calendar year. Otherwise, I'm going to issue an executive order, and we're going to bring the legal status to, well, some estimates are 5 million people. Now, first of all, does anyone think that this is constitutional? Did the president switch his opinion? Well, I'm not a king, but I'd like to be. I can act like one. I can act like a dictator, at least long enough to bolster the Democratic Party. Yeah. That which leads me, of course, to my next point. Virtually everyone agrees that if you have a pathway to these folks being legal, then you are going to have a pathway to citizenship. I think that presumption needs to be stopped. I think that you could say to people, you came here illegally, we're going to make you a legal resident, but we're not going to grant you citizenship. That's the price you have to pay for having come here illegally and put the burden that you have put on our infrastructure, because many of them are paid under the table, so they're not paying income tax, they're not paying FICA tax, they're not paying Medicare, Medicaid tax, right? And then they're sending the money out of the country back to Central America. That's what they're doing. So the price that you have to pay for having come here illegally is we're going to grant you legal residency, but we're not going to allow you to have citizenship, at least for X number of years. And it needs to be a long time. So that would be one way to deal with them. But what the president is proposing is he just does it. And he doesn't want there to be a 10 or 20 year period before they become citizens. He wants it to be as fast as possible. Because why? He wants them to be able to vote. All right? To vote. They would be largely, they would be absorbed into the Democratic Party. All right? The Democratic Party with Lyndon Baines Johnson and the New Deal, and the Great Society programs, they brought what had historically been a Republican group of people, the African Americans, and brought them way into the 90% range into the Democratic Party. And now they are the single most loyal base of the Democratic Party. African Americans. They make up 12% of the population, but their loyalty to the DNC and to the Democratic candidates is way into the 90s, okay? Obama recognizes that he's got to expand the base of the Democratic Party, and the quickest, easiest way to do that would be to get these Hispanics as not just legal residents, but as citizens who can join the Democratic Party and who can vote. All right? That's what this is about. And that's why he is completely willing to go it alone and to do what he needs to do with an executive order so that 5 million people can be brought in quickly, speedily, into the Democratic fold. Because that's a huge number for Senate races, for congressional races, and for the presidency. It's a huge number, and it would radically alter the political landscape of this country. Now, as I said, let's not talk about impeachment, because the Republicans have already said they won't talk about it. They're not going to do it. So they've given the president a pass. There are many legal scholars who say that he can't do this legally, and that if he does try and do it, say we're not going to give him a dime to do it, and that the second he leaves office and there's a Republican president in, we'll have another executive order that says no, we'll reverse it. All right? But since they've taken impeachment off the table, if this is unconstitutional, if it is a violation of his oath of office, then what are they going to do? They're going to whine? Are they going to cry? Are they going to say that's not fair? Or are they going to run to the party and say, oh, we'll work with you. No, we'll compromise. Well, how can we be the party of yes, even though their constituents don't want it? We've got to watch and see how this plays out. But I hope that somebody gets to the Republican leadership really quickly, because they're about to fumble this ball big time. I have been a leader in the pro-life movement for 30 years, and sadly we have not prevailed in our goal to make it a criminal act to kill an unborn baby. There's reasons why we have failed. I wrote this book, A Humble Plea, to Catholic bishops, to evangelical clergy, and to lay people, explaining where we went wrong and what we have to do to prevail. We've made this available as a PDF online for free. I encourage you to go and download your own copy. We have put together what we call an online university for you. Now that's a highfalutin way of saying that we have a pretty significant library of material, books, tapes, videos that are there for you for free. Why are we doing this? Because America is desperate for new leaders, and because this material could help you to become the leader that you and God want you to be. Check it out and enjoy it. Hi friend, I'm Randall Terry. President Adams, speaking about Muhammad, said, "The essence of his doctrine was violence and lust, to exalt the brutal over the spiritual part of human nature. Between these two religions, thus contrasted in the characters, a war of more than 1,200 years has already raged." I said something a little bit earlier in the show that was just a whisker disrespectful about our president. I said he needs psychiatric help. That may be true, but it's probably unbecoming of me to say it, and I apologize. I don't want to be, I don't want to be injudicious in my comments, because there's enough out there to talk about that you can hammer this guy. I do think that there is some bizarre level of detachment. Some people are saying that it's like he's oblivious, referring to the press conference that he did a couple days ago. I don't think he's oblivious. And I think that his detachment is actually a political ploy, okay? He's got to give a narrative for what just happened and what he will do for the next 2 years. And Hillary has to have a narrative. Remember that, all right? There's already people coming forward saying that this is great news for Hillary because the Republicans are now in charge of both houses in Congress. They're in charge of most of the chambers in our state governments, somewhere close to 70 of the 99 bodies, all right? There's 2 bodies per state except for Nebraska, who has 1 body, unicameral. So the Republicans are in charge of more than 2/3 of them. Close to 70% of the chambers are in Republican hands, and the majority, the vast majority of governors are now Republican. So this is a dream come true for Hillary. That's the new narrative, because that's going to give her a chance to show that the Republicans screwed things up over the last 2 years, and I'm your answer. This sense of we don't like people that are in power. Well, that's an interesting narrative, and Obama needs a narrative too. So now his narrative, which is being piped by the major networks who are his lackeys, that the majority didn't vote. The silent majority are still with the president. He's got a mission to fulfill, and he's gonna fulfill it. The torpedoes be danged, okay? So, whereas I think that this president is self-absorbed, and I think that there's enough people talking about that, he's perhaps even more than that, he is a man on a mission. You need to never forget that, all right? He worked hard to get to the presidency, and he came to that presidency with a mission involving American foreign policy, American domestic policy, involving health care, and he has succeeded in that mission. And he's not going to let the Republicans take it away because he's a believer. So I don't think he's oblivious. I think he's defiant. So the question again is, will the Republican Party have the courage to be the party of no Obama, no? you.